to complement the developing strategies of different participating parties by leveraging their respective comparative strengths. It is important to know that through our joint efforts, policy connectivity among individual countries, country groups, international organizations, and has been greatly strengthened. A case in point is the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, also called FOCAC, with the BRI cooperation being one of the centerpiece of the FOCAC summit in September 2018 in China. The policy connectivity between China and Africa was significantly improved. It is also important to note that it was then that the MOU between the government of the Republic of Uganda and the government of the People's Republic of China on BRI cooperation was signed, witnessed by His Excellency Yoweri Museveni and His Excellency Xi Jinping, President of our two countries. Secondly, infrastructure connectivity. As His Excellency President Museveni pointed out time again, infrastructure is of vital importance between the suppliers and the market. In this age of globalization, infrastructure connectivity between each other, be it by highway, railway, maritime transportation, air links, or pipelines, helps to reduce the cost and improve efficiency, thus greatly enhancing the trade and the well-being of the participating parties. Thirdly, trade connectivity. Trade connectivity focuses on trade and investment cooperation among different parties, including trade facilitation, reducing investment and trade barrier, protecting legitimate interests of the investors, so as to build and improve the business and the environment and the investment environment of each other, and to fight against protectionism in trade. Thirdly, the financial connectivity. Obviously, BRI needs strong support from financial connectivity. How to provide resourceful financial support and ways for financial integration is a key point in BRI cooperation. To this end, China has provided billions of dollars in supporting projects in BRI cooperation among participating parties through such institutions as the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the Silk Road Fund. Fourthly, the people-to-people. The fifth, people-to-people connectivity. Friendship, which derives from close contact between peoples, holds the key to sound state-to-state relations. The BRI aims to build a circle of friends that featured with wide consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits. BRI promotes exchange and mutual learning between nationalities and cultures. We encourage building more bridges among cultures, not building walls among us. It is through people to people that we can realize this, and with this spirit, we will enhance our well-being as human beings. Part 2, Africa is a key partner in building the Belt and Road Initiative. China and Africa, each with a celebrated history and civilization, have made important contribution to human progress and civilization. With the time-honored friendship, our two civilizations enjoyed mutually beneficial exchanges enabled by the ancient Silk Road. Such friendly interaction were further boosted by the voyage of the Chinese navigator Zheng He back in the Ming Dynasty. That was the 14th century, about 500 years ago. Since entering modern times, China and Africa, bounded by similar historical experience, struggles, and development tasks, have become good friends, good partners, and good brothers, despite the geographical distance between us. Today, in the Belt and Road Cooperation, Africa is also a very important player. Africa is a promising continent with abundant natural and human resources and a huge market of nearly 1.3 billion people. The 21st century is the century of Asia and Africa. A peaceful, stable, and prosperous Africa is in the fundamental interests of the people of the world and the common responsibility of international community. However, to achieve sustainable development in Africa, three bottlenecks are in the way. They are lagging infrastructure, underdeveloped talents, and a shortage of funds. Africa's friends and partners should really help Africa in their efforts to deal with those three bottlenecks to achieve sustainable development. At present, we live in a time when changes unseen in a century are taking shape. One of the defining changes has been the fact that a large number of developing countries, including China and African countries, have entered historical phase of fast development. A recent report last month by Brookings Institution US forecast that between now and 2024, the GDP of Uganda is projected to grow at a rate of 7.2% per annum. On the part of China, we will keep the path of peaceful development, deepen our reforms, expand opening up policy, and pursue high-quality Belt and Road cooperation with participating countries, with a view to promoting a new type of international relations and a community with a shared future for mankind. In the development of China-Africa relations, the five connectivities in the Belt and Road Cooperation are also fully respected, laying a good foundation for building the Belt and Road Cooperation in higher quality. On the front of policy coordination, established 20 years ago in the year 2000, FOCAC, the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, is the top policy communication mechanism and a platform for practical cooperation between China and African countries. The 2018 FOCAC Beijing Summit was the third summit since the establishment of the mechanism. Two summits of FOCAC had been convened since the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, both focusing on policy coordinating between China and Africa in the development and the prosperity, with China providing financing support of $60 billion. Each summit for the African development agenda and the practical cooperation between China and Africa, adding new contents and momentum to the policy, communication, and coordination between China and Africa. To date, over 40 African countries and the African Union have signed MOU on BRI, as I mentioned earlier. On the front of infrastructure connectivity, infrastructure challenges not only push up the cost of domestic trade and transnational regional trade in Africa, but also hinders Africa in their efforts in attracting foreign investment. In our joint efforts to develop infrastructure connectivity, China's competitive advantages in the fields of infrastructure construction can help. Indeed, since the Belt and Road Initiative was put forward, the infrastructure construction cooperation between China and Africa has increased significantly. In recent years, infrastructure projects such as railways, highways, bridges, ports, and so on has sprung up here and there in Africa, effectively improve investment environment of African countries, promoted living standards of local people on the continent. For example, Djibouti, thanks to the infrastructure projects such as railway and port, Djibouti has now become one of the fastest developing African country with its annual growth rate reaching 6.9% in 2017 and 6% in 2018. Now, Djibouti is serving as the main gateway in East Africa, particularly for Ethiopia. The cargo in and out of Djibouti port has helped job creation, economic development, and created tax revenue and foreign exchange for these two countries. On the front of trade, China-Africa trade is very complementary. In Africa, there are 54 countries and a population of 1.3 billion, with rich natural and human resources, broad market, and huge development potentials. Since 2009, China has been Africa's largest single trading partner for 10 consecutive years. In 2013, the trade volume between China and Africa reached 210 billion US dollars. It's 2,000 times that in 1960. In recent years, due to the decline of international commodity prices, the volume of trade between China and Africa fluctuates at 200 billion US dollars. Africa is also the third largest overseas investment market and the second largest overseas project contracting market for China. On the front of financial connectivity, financial integration provides strong support for the construction of Belt and Road Initiative. In 2014, Chinese government invested 40 billion US dollars in setting up the Silk Road Fund and invested 100 billion US dollars in Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank in 2016. In December 2015, Chinese President Xi Jinping announced in the opening ceremony of the FOCAC Johannesburg Summit that China would increase 5 billion US dollars to China-Africa Development Fund and a special loan for the the development of African small and medium-sized enterprises, respectively. On September 2018, President Xi Jinping further announced in the opening ceremony of the FOCAC Beijing Summit that China would set up a $5 billion special fund for the imports from Africa and would encourage Chinese companies to make at least $10 billion investment in Africa in the next 3 years. Till this year, China-Africa Development Fund has invested more than $4.6 billion in more than 90 projects in 36 countries of Africa, covering infrastructure, capacity equipment, agriculture, people's livelihood, energy, and resource development, and other fields. On the front of people-to-people connectivity, the long history of China-Africa friendly exchanges have nurtured a natural sense of closeness between Chinese people and African people. This mutual recognition and trust form the foundation of China-Africa traditional friendly relations. As President Xi Jinping said, only with the warm participation of both sides can China-Africa friendship maintain vitality, and the foundation of China-Africa cooperation can be continuously consolidated. Both China and Africa have splendid history and culture. People-to-people and cultural exchanges